Hello, today we're going to take you through the more advanced map making workflow for the Queensland Rogaine Association. So we go to the resources page on the website. So the website is qldrogaine.asn.au. We go to the volunteer menu and we click on resources. Then the map making guide is in the guides and checklists area. So we click on that. And then it's called map making information, the page you want. There's another guide for making simple maps, which has its own YouTube tutorial there. Today we're going to go through the more advanced workflow, which is rather than making a quick web-based map using Open Orienteering Map, we're going to use QGIS, which is a geographic information system software that's free that enables you to basically have a lot more control over what you're producing. It makes a custom map with a lot of layers for different data types, most of which come from free open source um, data suppliers like the Queensland Government and OpenStreetMap. So the first step, if you haven't done this before, is to install QGIS. So we click on this link and it takes us to the QGIS website. We want to download the software and obviously you're encouraged to donate to QGIS. They're good people that make this. But what we want is the long-term version for Windows. So click on that in the middle there and it will download the install file for QGIS. So basically I've already downloaded it there, but if you wanted to download it, you would download it there and then install the software. So we're going to assume you've installed it. Just use the default settings is fine. And the next step then is to download the Southeast Queensland base map files. So I've put together a bit of a data packet of all the main layers you'd need for making maps in Southeast Queensland. It involves the contours, the drainage data, quite a lot of preset styles for some of the layers you'll be using. So download that base map file from this Google Drive link. Click on that. It takes you to the zip file. So ignore the error there and just press download. It will then save that to your computer. So you can save it wherever you want. It has the name seqbasemap.zip. So save that to your computer. What you then want to do is go to where that will take a long time to download depending on your internet connection speed because it's a 3.5 gigabyte file. But once you've downloaded it, it will be on your computer in a downloads folder. If you double click on that zip file and then extract all of the items in that folder, you can choose where you put it. I recommend putting it obviously in an area that has plenty of space on your hard drive. I've extracted it to this folder, so you can see in this folder I've got all of the files that came from that zip file. And the map I'm making today is in an area that's basically due west of Noosa, but I've split up the base map into a number of sub areas, and you can kind of choose based on where your subject site is, the QGIS project file. Each of these QGZ files are QGIS project files that corresponds to the area you need. So if you download, it doesn't matter if you get it wrong because you can always download another alternative one. I'm just going to double click on north of Noosa because I know that my site's in that area. Once I've opened this, I'll show you where all the coverages are. So if I zoom right out, so you can just use the scroll wheel of your mouse to zoom out, or there is a zoom out tool up there as well. You'll be able to see where all the base map areas are. So basically, Brisbane's in here, and we've got northwest of Brisbane is basically between Brisbane and Noosa. There's between the south of Brisbane, which is between Brisbane and about, that's probably around about Kingscliff, or maybe a bit further south, Mooloolaba. Then there's southwest of Toowoomba and northwest of Toowoomba. Toowoomba's about here. So once you've worked out which area you need and you've downloaded and opened the right base map, we can use the magnifying glass to zoom in on the area we want to make a map in. And I'm pretty confident my map's in about this area here. We can turn off the base map areas layer. So the way QGIS works is there's a whole lot of data layers, and they each are basically a separate file on your computer. But they show up here in this layers panel. Usually it's in the bottom left. If you can't see that layers panel, you can always turn it on in the view menu. So view panels and choose what panels you want, and the layers panel is an important one. So each of these layers is drawn in sequence. So the one at the top is the top layer. So that's drawn over the top of all the others, and then the priority goes down the list here. I can turn off this base map layers layer now because I don't need those red lines showing me where the base maps were. This is roughly the area I want to do a map for. So I'll just use this hand dragging panning tool to pan over a bit to get it a bit more centered. The center of my map's about here, I think. That's the town of, or the locality of Manumbar. So now the next step is we want some roads features, because at the moment we've just got contours, a drainage layer, and some vegetation, which is the dark green shading. To add some roads, the best way to do it is to import some layers from OpenStreetMap. And to do that, we use a tool called QuickOSM. So the beauty of QGIS is it's got a lot of plugins that people are voluntarily creating that help you do certain things. It all uses Python code. So if you're into Python code, you can actually write your own plugins. We've got to manage and install the plugins. It goes to the official repository. So all of these can be downloaded from QGIS, and they give you additional features, additional tools and capabilities. We're going to type quick OSM. Oh, quick OSM. And we'll click on that plugin. So it allows us to download OSM data. So we go install the plugin. And we can close that now. So most plugins either give you a toolbar, or some of them you can control from this plugins menu. In this case, it's given us a toolbar, this one here. And we can click on that little green magnifying glass is QuickOSM, the plugin that we just downloaded and installed. So let's click on that. These are some preset downloads. I don't think we need to worry about using those. I've just got my own recommendation. All we need really is the roads layer. So we'll just go to do a quick query. And I know from experience with this that all of the track and road features we want are given a key in OpenStreetMap called highway. So we type highway in here, and we need to tell this plugin what area we want to download all those highway features from, and that's this drop down here. So we click on that, we want a spatial extent, and we're going to basically say the canvas extent. Now the canvas is just the area that you've got in your main map window at present. So we choose canvas extent, then we run the query. So it's looking for all the features in OpenStreetMap that have a key label of highway within this canvas extent. We run that query. It says it's successful, 2 layers have been loaded, so we can close that window now. And you can't really see the layers you've just downloaded because they've got this symbology that doesn't really show up very clearly on here. What we do have in our base map is a roads layer that already has the right styling. So what you want to do now is actually copy all of these highway layers. See how the highway features you've downloaded have come to the top layer of your map? You want to basically take these highway features and copy them onto your roads layer. By doing that, it'll get the right styling. So they'll be styled as roads and they'll look like roads on your map the way we want them for your Rogaine map. So how do we copy features from one layer to another? We want to copy, so basically we want to select all of the features in this highway layer. We can do that just by going edit, select all features in that layer. And see how all the roads now have been highlighted yellow? That means they're selected. And we can again use the edit menu to copy those features. Now the next step is we want to paste those features into this roads layer, but the roads layer at the moment is not editable. I can left click on it and then I want to make it editable. There are 2 ways I can do that. I can either right click on that layer and toggle editing, or the other option is in this toolbar up here. Now this is an important toolbar, this editing toolbar here. There's a little pencil there. That is the same thing. That toggles editing. So I can turn on editing by clicking on that. And what I want to do is paste those features from that highway layer that I selected and copied. I want to paste them into this roads layer. So I've got the roads layer selected. I've made it editable by turning on the editing with that pencil. Now I'm going to edit and I'm going to paste the features from the highway layer. Okay, so there they are. They've come through. They're also showing all of the nodes in all of the vector lines, which shows you that if you wanted to drag and drop some nodes, you could edit those lines. But at the moment, we're just going to be happy with having pasted them in. And we can basically turn off editing on that layer now. We can say stop editing. And yes, we want to save the changes to our roads layer. So save that change. Now, we don't need these 2 highway layers now because we've put them into our roads layer. So we can right click on those and we can say remove those layers. Remove layer. And the second one, remove layer. We didn't need those points. I'm not sure what they are. They're probably signs or something. Remove that layer. Okay, now you can get a feel for what your roads look like by clicking on your roads layer and using this select tool to select off those selected features. And now you can see they've come in as tracks and roads. The solid lines being minor roads, the dotted lines being the tracks. And this is managed by our middle of our map here where we're going to have our hash house. So the next step is to start building our actual map with our control locations, etc. For that purpose, we can click on our hash house layer and we can toggle that editing. So we can right click and go toggle editing, or on the edit menu or edit toolbar, we can click on that pencil, which toggles the editing. And now we want to zoom in, so you can use, again, the scroll wheel on your mouse or the zoom tool up here. If I click on that zoom in tool, I can choose basically the area I want. And we can put our hash house where we want it. The way we add a new feature is this is a points layer. So vector layers can be either points or polygons. In this case, it's a point layer. So in this editing toolbar, there's an add point feature tool. So let's click on that. And we know our hash house is here, so we click on there. And you can give it a label of hash house. And there's our hash house triangle. You can zoom out again if you want. And the next step is we can start putting our controls on. So we can turn off that hash house editing toggle now. So we can untick this pencil, and yes, we can save the changes to that layer. So again, each of these layers is its own file sitting on your computer. And when we make changes, it saves changes to the file. Next, we select the CPs layer, the checkpoint or control layer. And again, we've got to toggle the editing to be able to start putting checkpoints on. So click toggle editing. And again, it's a points layer, so we want to add a point feature. So click on that, and you get this target tool. So you might start putting checkpoints on. Obviously, you have to bear in mind where your out of bounds are, and that's the next step we'll get to shortly. But for the moment, I'll start putting on some checkpoints with some numbers. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this demonstration what we say. We can give them whatever values we want. And once we're happy, we keep on doing that until we've got all our checkpoints on. Once we're happy, we can, again, turn off editing using the toggle. So save the layer changes, yes. And you can also do the same sort of thing for water points. So just say we had a water point, we would toggle editing, add a point feature, put the water point where we want it, might call it water 1, and it has a little water symbol. You could edit that symbol if you don't like that symbol. Sometimes we just use a blue circle, might be better. Again, we can turn editing off there. And then the next one is we want to get to this out of bounds layer. So you're always going to have out of bounds. Primarily the borders of the map, obviously, are out of bounds. But you also may need to make some areas around buildings out of bounds. We haven't brought in a buildings layer here. You may be able to find some building layers on the open data page of the Queensland Government website. The other thing we have brought in from the Queensland Government website, though, is the property boundaries, which is handy. So down the bottom here, the bottom layer of the map, we've got property boundaries. So if we click on that, that brings on the property boundaries, and that will help you make your out of bounds areas. So hopefully you've gone out, talked to the landholders, you know what the lot numbers are for each of these rectangles, and you know who owns them. That can be a bit of work. So yeah, I hope that you've had some luck in working out who owns what. Once you've worked out who owns what, and you have these boundaries here, you can draw your out of bounds areas. So the way we do that is, again, we select the out of bounds layer, OOB, we toggle the editing. Now this is a polygon layer, so it's a bit different. Instead of that points feature button, we've got an add polygon feature. So we're going to add a polygon, and we're going to start drawing. Now, you can obviously draw the boundary of your map, but because we want the actual out of bounds to be outside the map area, we have to be a bit tricky. So let's start by drawing our map boundaries, and I'm obviously just going to make them up here, but you can draw them according to your actual map once you know the boundaries. I'm just making them up as I go, and it's all a bit random. Um, Generally speaking, you probably do want to follow fence lines, which are usually these property boundaries, because it'll be easier to keep your competitors on the map, but um, it's also important to not trespass on people's land who haven't given you permission. So just say that was our map area. Now, as I said, we don't want the map area to be out of bounds, we want the outside to be out of bounds. So we need to actually keep drawing and draw like an outside bounding box that then makes the rest of our map area um, inbound. So draw sufficiently far outside the map as you like, just so it makes a nice bounding box area. Um, you need to just click on the same 2 points you had here. So there and then right click to finish, and don't need to give it any FID. There you go, you've drawn your out of bounds boundary box around your map. So we're almost ready to basically make our map layout now. So the way that QGIS works is it's got this main map window where you can choose which layers you want to look at, and you can turn layers on and off according to whether you want them. Um, but this isn't where we compose our page for our actual map. We do that in what's called a layout, which takes these layers and makes them look nice on a page. I've pre-made a couple of them here for you. So we can go to, let's first center our map nicely using that panning tool. And then we can go to this project layouts menu. And I've made a landscape one and a portrait one. In this case, we're going to choose a landscape map. Now, this will come up a bit yucky at first because it's brought a lot of legend items in, which we won't need. We'll get rid of that soon. But for the moment, let's just click on the magnifying glass and zoom into this page, which we've predefined as an A3 landscape page. And you can see it's looking at the wrong area. It's looking at that initial view we had when we opened QGIS. So what we want instead is the area we've been working on. And the way to get the right area is to choose this select arrow, then click on the map item. So I've drawn a map item that covers the whole page. You can see I can actually change the bounds of that box, but at the moment we don't need to. It's covering the right area. And over here is these item properties. So this map item that's sitting on our page has properties, and that includes scale, it includes rotation, and it also gives us these little buttons up here which can edit what we're actually seeing on the map. What we want is this button here, which, see the little arrow going into the layout. We want to take what's on our main map canvas, and we want to set the extent of this map item to the same extent as our main canvas, which is what we were looking at before. So let's click that, and it brings in what we were looking at before onto this page. There you go. There's our almost finished map. You can zoom in, obviously, so what you might want to do there is just adjust the scale. So I think if we put it at 1:40 scale, 1:40,000 scale, that will probably fix two problems. It'll give us a nice scale, but it will also just increase the size of this central map area a bit. So if I press enter or I click somewhere else, it'll zoom in a bit according to that scale. There you go. Now that's almost perfect. You can see this out of bounds is a little bit off the page. I can adjust that very slightly by, again, my map item is selected. I can choose this little icon here. That lets us interactively edit that map extent. So if I click on that, suddenly I can click and drag on this map, and instead of moving my map item, it'll actually drag the contents of the map like that. So right about there, when it updates, it'll show me that, yeah, I've now got virtually the perfect extents because my outer bounds is basically at the edges of the map. Now, the most glaring problem here is my legend doesn't look very good. So let's click on my legend now. I might have to change back to this select and move item arrow, and then click on this one. So I'm now looking at my legend item, and that's turned up here, down here, this item properties. You can click and drag the extents of that, obviously. So there's a whole lot of stuff on here that we don't need. The quickest way to get rid of the stuff we don't need might be to just only show items that are inside the link map. So if I click that, suddenly my legend will reduce substantially. There's still more than I need there though. I might also move my legend so that it's up here, and I can start removing things from it now. I'll probably also only need it to be about that wide, probably. So that's something I can do straight away. Let's go over to here and start removing excess layers. Vegetation, you can see it's brought in all these extra bands down there. I think I'll just remove vegetation completely, or I can right click and I can hide it. Oh, actually I just need to remove the whole thing, I think. Yeah, let's just remove it. So select it, and then you can click this little minus symbol here, removes it. There we go. So my resizing before didn't work. It's probably because this property boundaries thing is still there. So let's remove property boundaries as well, because we don't actually have that on our map. Base map layers, we want to hide that text, so we can go hidden. This contour is north of Noosa. We do want the sub items there, but we don't want this main one, so we can go hide that. We probably want to rename this to make it more legible for the people doing the event. Now, you can do it here, so I can just edit in here and go out of bounds. A better way to do it would actually be to go back to the main map and rename that whole layer, because then we wouldn't have to do it every time we make a new map. But for the moment, I'll just do it here. Within roads, we don't need service, I don't think, so we can remove that. We don't need on ground, we don't need main road bridge, we don't need above ground. Oh, still there? And then we also don't really need the word roads there, so we can hide that one. Okay, so now we're getting pretty close. Magnetic North, now unfortunately it comes in as a purple polygon, which doesn't show up in the legend, so you may have to just edit that symbol. So the way we edit that is to double click on the symbol. So you see the problem is that it's using the line pattern of the actual magnetic north lines as a polygon feature. So we need to make it visible in the legend, we need to change it so that these lines are actually horizontal, so that we get a horizontal purple line there. So we can do that by making a custom symbol and then changing that to be a 0-degree line pattern fill rather than the magnetic north angle. And then we also need to just adjust the offset so that it's showing up on the legend on the left there. So if I click down a few millimeters, see how that purple line on the left is coming down to be across magnetic north. And then we also need to change the text there just so that it says magnetic north. Okay, so then you're back to having a legend, and now that looks fine. Okay, now we're very close to being finished. You can also put on some additional text boxes to say who did what. So, for example, you can add a text box here, put it down here, and we can say this event brought to you by wonderful QRA volunteers, and you can name them all there. Obviously, you want to adjust the background color and the text size there so that you can read it. We can go background, and white is a fine color. You can edit things like the horizontal margin and the vertical margin. You can change the shape of it. So you get the idea, but that is basically a way to put an extra bit of information on there. There's already a QRA logo. There's already a scale bar. Just check that it looks correct. So once you're happy with your map, you can save that, go to layout, and you can export it as a PDF. So it's a Rogaine map landscape. We can just say demo map, save it wherever you like. So I think most of the defaults here is fine. I think that it's a good idea to export as vectors, but for the moment we'll leave this as it is. You can also create a geospatial PDF. That only works if you haven't rotated the map at all. But the advantage of that is you can load up the PDF in a GIS or some sort of program that, for example, Avenza Maps, where it allows georeferenced PDFs, and then we can open the file after we export, so we save. And there is our beautiful event map. The other thing that's good to do is to export this for use in MapRun as a KMZ file. Now, this is a bit tricky because there's a catch that we need a certain projection for it to work as a KMZ for MapRun. So I'm going to assume that you know a bit about MapRun. It's an app that you can use to do the scoring for Rogaines. What we can do is we can change the projection of this project to be compatible with the sort of KMZ or the sort of projection that MapRun needs. We can do that by changing the projection down here. This is what we call a EPSG code, and this one's for the Cartesian map grid of Australia Zone 56 projection. That just means the way that a spherical surface like the Earth is projected onto a horizontal plane. And the map grid of Australia is a standard way to do that in Australia. We're going to change it to the Google Maps projection, which is, I think it's 3857. So that's the pseudo Mercator projection, which is a nasty projection because it doesn't do nice things near the poles. You probably will know the story about Greenland being much smaller than it looks on a Mercator projection, that's this projection. So let's apply that and just click OK through all these boxes about transforming all the layers. And we'll click OK on there. What you want to do though is make sure you put the projection back to what it was after you've done this, because you don't want to keep it in that projection. It will throw out your scale bar and all sorts of nasty things. Right, so now we export the map canvas we're looking at as a image. So in the project menu, go to import, export, and export the map to an image. We want to leave it as the map view, as the extents, and then we want to change this resolution. 150 dpi is a good compromise, I think. You don't want to make it too high resolution or the file size will be too large. Click Save. Choose where you want to save it. I might just choose it in my downloads folder for the moment and call it demo map, whatever you like. Save. Okay, so that'll take a little while to save. The next step is actually to go to a utility that is built by Peter F&E for the purpose of converting these map images into a KMZ file. So we'll go over to, I'll just go back to the web browser, and that's the web address. It's p.fne.com.au/rg/o-utils.cgi. That link is on the Queensland Rogaine Map Resources web page, so you don't need to remember it. Just go to that map resourcing page and follow the link. We want to, when you go to that page, you'll get this initial web page. The utility you want to use is all the way down here. It's creating a KMZ file from a JPG and JGW file. In our case, we've actually got a PNG and PGW file, but it's the same thing. We just go choose file, and we go to downloads, and we choose our demo map we just saved. And then we choose the corresponding PGW, that's the text world file that describes where this image is in space in the Google Maps projection. So we click that file, and then we click go, and the website script does its thing and comes up with another text box where we just put in the name of the KMZ file we want. We press save. We save that in downloads or wherever you want. So then once this is downloaded, just click on that to check, and if you've got Google Earth installed, it will load up that demo map in Google Earth, and you'll be able to check that it's in the right place. That's Manambar, so it's in the right place, it's doing the right things, and we're happy. That KMZ file is now ready to be uploaded to the MapRun website. Either the check sites website, which is what you use for checking maps and checking control locations, or the production website for making an event. If you want the production website, you'll have to get in touch with support@qldrogaine.asn.au to ask a admin person to upload that there for you. So if we go back to our QGIS window, the next step is we want our control locations to be output as a KML file. We need to remember to put the projection back to the map grid of Australia. So this is the Google Maps projection, Mercator projection 3857. We want to go back to this MGA Zone 56 projection, which we're in before, which has the code 28356. So if it doesn't come up in one of your recently used coordinate reference systems, you can put a filter up here, 28356, and there it is down there. So double click on that or press OK. Now back in the bottom right corner, we're back to EPSG 28356. So now it's back to our good projection system, which is a map grid that is correct for this part of Australia. So the next step is we want to export both the hash house and checkpoint layer as KML files for use in MapRun. We're going to right click on the layer, we're going to export the layer, save features as. Here we can choose KML file in the format type, so it's called Keyhole Markup Language KML. That's a Google Earth format. Click that. For the file name, we can just call it hashhouse.kml. We can save it in the downloads folder or wherever you want. Then we want to change the CRS to this default CRS 4326 WGS84 so that the coordinates are latitude and longitude. We should also be careful to change it so that the name field is equal to the labels that we've put on it. So I think if we type label there, it should give us the right name field for the KML features. We don't want to add the save file to the map. Let's press OK. Now we'll go find that file that we just saved. It'll be in the downloads folder. Let's click on it and just check in Google Earth. Yep, it's come in the right spot, and it's even got the right labels, so that's good. That's done the right thing. And now we need to do the same thing for the checkpoints. So we'll go back to QGIS. So we right click on the checkpoint layer, but bear in mind this time we want to also make sure the labels are correct on the KML file. So we need to find out what these checkpoint numbers have been stored in this layer. So to do that, we open the attribute table. That tells us what the labels are for all the fields in our table. So we click on that and we see that the checkpoints are stored in the CP underscore number column. So we basically just memorize that, and then when we right click again on the checkpoint layer to export it, we can save the features as a KML file. We can write in here CPs, save it in the downloads folder, change the CRS to WGS84, and then what you want to do is put in that name field that we just found for the CP number and type that in there. So CP underscore number, uncheck that, and then once we save that, we can then go to the downloads folder. We can double click on the file we just saved. It'll open it up in Google Earth, and you can see that the 3 checkpoints have come in the correct spot. So that's what we wanted. What MapRun wants, though, is a single KML file that has all of the checkpoints plus the start and finish checkpoints, which in our case is the hash house. So we can use Google Earth to help us build that. If you click on this little arrow here, it shows you what's inside the folder. So you can see the CPs folder has all the checkpoints. We want to add the hash house checkpoint as an S1 and an F1 into this list. So we expand the hash house folder. This has 2 hash houses in it because this base map has been used for more than one event. It'll probably be the bottom HH in this hash house file that you want. So click on that one. You can see it's highlighted this one in the middle of the map. That's the one we want. So we can actually just drag and drop that from that folder into this CPs folder. And you can see you can choose where to put it. We want it just above that 50, so drop it just above the 50. We want it to be called S1 though, because that's what MapRun expects. So let's rename that to S1. Then we can right click on that, copy that S1 and paste it into this folder. And then we've got 2 S1s, but we want one of them to be an F1. So we've got to drag that S1 down to the bottom of this folder. That's what MapRun expects. It expects to see an S1 at the top, and change this so that it's called an F1 at the bottom. Now we're ready. This is a KML format that MapRun will recognize. It's got an S1, a bunch of control numbers, and then F1. So we right click on that CPs folder. We save that to save that place as, and we save it as not a KMZ file but a KML file, and we'll call it something meaningful. We can call it the QRA demo event, and we can give it an extra code which is PXAS, which means it's a score course, and then score P, that just means we can set the scoring parameters. We want a 10 point per minute penalty, for example, and just say it's a 6-hour event. We can call it 360, which is 360 minutes. So save it. It doesn't really matter if you leave off those codes. That's just makes it easier when you're setting up the MapRun event. So just save it as a KML file, and then you're ready to go. You've got the KMZ file from the MapRun, from the map image, and the KML file, which has the S1, F1, and the control locations. And we can go now to the MapRun website, and we can upload those to make an event, either as a check sites for checking control locations, which you can do yourself, just Google MapRun check sites. Or if you want to make an event, you can email the KMZ and KML files to support@qldrogaine.asn.au, and we'll upload that using the admin account to the MapRun server. So thanks for that. Hope that was helpful, and we will see you soon.